because I hate these receivers. I hate them, all of them, other than MVS and Adams. I don't care if they're all off the team. It doesn't make it.
MVS. What? When did this heel turn happen?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome in. I am so thrilled to welcome a fellow Byron Buxton truther, a victor of God knows how many Indigo Plateau championships, and my third or second triplet next to Baker Mayfield. Welcome in, Andre Weingarten, Moonlight Swami himself. How's it going, my friend? Welcome into our second annual back and forth What We Would Do mock draft. How you holding up during draft season? And thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing absolutely great. It is a beautiful day to do some mock drafting. The draft is almost upon us, and I'm really excited. So thank you again for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, just grinding every day up until the draft. Do you have any big plans for draft night?
I think we're going to be doing a nice watch along with a bunch of people at the company. So
nice.
whole team kind of getting together and watching, enjoying it.
Yeah, that'll be a great time, great experience.
Little weird, not in person though. We've done them in person previously.
That's true. So. That's true. Cause you're up in New York right now, right?
Yeah. I remember, so my first one that we did together was the 2018 draft. And I was like, okay, Lamar Jackson, he's still there. And the pick is in. And it's Sony Michel. And I just...
Oh, yes.
That was the most
was
painful
Jimmy had just
moment.
Been traded off at that point too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It made all the sense in the world. And Sony Michel.
That would have been sweet.
They took the wrong running back. Anyway.
Oh. Love it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So I need to reiterate that this is what we would do, not a predictive mock. We're each going to be putting up our own predictive mocks, I think, in the coming weeks. So off of our own kind of opinions, our own evals, and based on what we think these teams, the direction we think they should go. And we have put these picks in. So we're just going to kind of go through it and talk about our selections here. So did I start?
Yes, you were the one who started. So the way we're doing it, you have the odd numbered picks. I have the even number picks. Right.
Well, when it's the first pick and you have to put no thought into it, it's easy to forget that was the pick you made. So Trevor Lawrence is going to go first overall. I personally actually have a closer gap between Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence, but not wide enough to just in general make the decision. But I do think the fact that it's a new regime, and if you went with what you're not supposed to do and he didn't work out, that's just asking to get kicked out of the building. So I think that factors in as well. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence, the golden boy heading to Jacksonville, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right. I think you can go one of two players here. I think either Zach Wilson or Justin Fields would be a great fit in that offense, but I think it makes more sense just based on the New York market, based on everything that we know about Zach Wilson, that he's the kind of player and fit for the New York Jets. He has that tremendous upside. He's really exciting. He'll get people energized about the team, and he's also used to playing with talent that might not be up to par to those around him. I think he's a perfect fit for the New York market and culture, and his sky is the limit, even though he might not be my quarterback 1 or 2. Yeah,
well, I like that you kind of set me up with the transition on the scheme fit mentioning, because they're going to have a tough, I don't know if it's a tough decision, but either one would work well for the Jets. And it's the same reason Justin Fields here for San Francisco is such a great fit, because obviously LaFleur coming in, implementing the exact same offense. You know, I would think about Trey Lance, but the kind of opportunity to have that impact early on, as opposed to Trey Lance, where I do think Trey Lance needs a little more time. I still don't love his mechanics. Like, I think there's still some stuff to work out there from the accuracy and just, he's only played 16 games. If you even want to count the one he played in last year.
No, that game doesn't count.
Right.
Strike that one from the record.
Exactly. So I think Fields, if you want to talk upside, physical traits is pick and choose between Trey Lance and Fields, but I think Fields with the accuracy, the mobility, and the opportunity to come in and just dominate day one if they did go with him and they could go get a second round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo or something. I was looking for MVP odds on Justin Fields earlier because if he goes here, I really think he could be that good in this system. So it's not Mac Jones. I don't think that has any cadence to it. There's just no way you give up that many draft picks to go get Mac Jones. And I think this is what will happen and what I would do, even though I'm not the biggest, I like Justin Fields a lot, but I feel like I need to say that I don't think he's close to Zach Wilson.
Which I get. And Wilson, his performance against Coastal, I think really puts him not over the top for me, but it really made me feel comfortable taking him number 2 because that was a short week against a team that was much better talent-wise than what he had, and they got stopped on the inch-yard line. I mean, that, it was
a hell of a drive at the end of that game, and he was so close.
Both of them are gamers, and I'll drop a nugget for the viewers on Justin Fields. He's the only quarterback in this class to receive offers from multiple Ivy League schools. Got offers from Harvard and Yale to play football and for the academics, as he was a 3.9 student in high school. That leads us to number 4, which, I mean, we're doing a run on quarterbacks. I'm taking Trey Lance here if I'm Atlanta. They're not in a position to compete right now. It's just they have too many holes on that team, and Matt Ryan is not getting any younger. Lance is a perfect fit in the Arthur Smith offense. I mean, it's very similar to what the 49ers and Jets are going to be running, but it still has its own unique wrinkles to it. They use the quarterback more in the run game. You see Tannehill has quite a bit more opportunities to run in Tennessee. So I think Lance is that type of player that you go and he's an immediate red zone threat for your team, and you don't need to throw him out there. You have him learn behind Matt Ryan. Mentally, he's there. I agree with you that the mechanics are the thing that's probably holding him back. But if I'm Atlanta, I'm sprinting to that podium if I'm not trading down and taking Trey Lance.
I kind of like the idea of using him in the red zone because Matt Ryan in the red zone is difficult to watch sometimes. Let's go on to Cincinnati. We're going to take Penei Sewell. This has been discussed ad nauseum. To me, this does a lot of things that I've talked about in other mock drafts, but I'll let you know. For one, it obviously protects Burrow, which is priority number 1, but he is an incredible move blocker for if you wanted Zach Taylor to get back to his roots a little bit, because they definitely got off of the wide zone kind of, where he's from, with coming from McVay. So they definitely got off of that almost entirely. It felt like if he wants to go that route, this would absolutely help. It also can pave some lanes for Joe Mixon, who right now you're overpaying because you're not blocking for him to get him in space. So it really kind of lets the quarterback and the coach and your highest paid offensive player kind of all function a little better. So I like that. And I think you can get a receiver later on, and it's not like they're hurting at receiver. It's just Chase is awesome. So
question, right tackle or guard immediately for Sewell?
That's a tough question. I loved what I heard. God, I hate when I can't credit people. It was from the Athletic podcast. Robert Mays, who has blocked you on Twitter, as I've heard, was doing the team by team mock. And the guy that came out for the Bengals pointed out that, I don't know if it was Whitworth or someone else, but historically that front office has played someone at guard first year and then kicked him back out to tackle. So that might impact them because the same people are still kind of in-house there. So they have memory of doing that.
Interesting.
It also depends where you go later in the draft because I want to play my best offensive line for Burrow. Ideally, I would have Sewell at tackle to not screw up his development, but.
Correct. Yeah, I'm with you. Leo Collins, Laramie Tunsil both started at guard before kicking out to the outside.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they've both been excellent, right?
Also, I think it may have helped them. Who knows? They both developed really well.
Fun fact, Mays blocked me because I didn't agree that Mike Pettin was the mastermind behind the Jets defenses with Rex Ryan, which is what he said. He said as a Bears fan, he was terrified of Mike Pettin because he was the mastermind of that defense.
Oh, no.
And I said, no, he was not. And he blocked me off that. So fun little fact. But on to number 6. This is where things get fun, right? Because now I think the first 5, outside of maybe Lance, right? Because Atlanta's just a tough prediction. I think those are pretty straightforward. Miami's the first wild card because they could go in a lot of different directions. But for me, they're taking the best player potentially in the draft. That's Kyle Pitts, tight end. And I'll put an asterisk next to tight end for Kyle Pitts here.
That's what I do.
Because wide receiver doesn't make sense for them. They have Devontae Parker, who they just extended. They have Preston Williams, who they like, but has had availability issues. They just signed Will Fuller for a 1-year deal. So you have 3 capable starting wide receivers, plus Albert Wilson is back, plus Jakeem Grant, plus all sorts of other weapons. You have Gesicki. Now you have a quarterback who probably needs as much help as he can get at the moment, right? Especially with that offensive line. And now you can do a lot of different things because Pitts is athletic enough to play in the slot, to play out wide against either. You can kind of expand things out, come out in 12 personnel, and you can just annihilate defensive structures with 12 personnel when you have 2 move guys who are that athletic. Pitts is probably a better blocker right now than Gesicki. So while you're not having a strength in the run blocking game necessarily, you could come out in 13 personnel with Devontae Parker in some of these sets and have him there. And then you could split out Pitts wide and you could literally have him as a wide receiver and in a mismatch against a linebacker or a safety and motion him inside. And then now you have a plus advantage in the run game.
Number 7 is Ja'Marr Chase to the Detroit Lions. Kind of sucks going from national champion team to just train wreck LSU team to now train wreck Detroit team for Ja'Marr. But best pick for Detroit. I don't think we really need to dive into that one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Jaylen Waddle there, but I think Chase is pretty much, he's what you need. He's going to fill the void of losing Kenny Golladay, and their wide receivers otherwise are disgustingly no.
Like some kneecaps too.
Yes, exactly. He'll definitely do that. So number 8, Rashawn Slater. I think the Panthers definitely could use help on that offensive line for Sam Darnold or whomever they have starting week number 1 for that team. Slater is a really good fit in that zone blocking scheme. He's technically sound. You need just a good pass. You just need a good pass blocker. He can be a plus in the run game. I would say it also fits exactly the kind of style of Carolina, right? They went Derek Brown last year. They wanted really good players, sound football players, and Rashawn Slater is that guy who has probably the highest floor in the class outside of the quarterback position and has a pretty good ceiling too. So if you had a double with him, you're sitting pretty for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and then that double could turn into a 2-run home run if it helps Darnold reach his potential. So,
yep.
So now it's time for some fun. I was sitting here at number 9, and I hate that I can't trade up for a quarterback. I hate that I have to take Mac Jones here for Denver. My philosophy for the Denver Broncos is a stubborn one that I don't normally take. And it's that, what the hell are we doing if we don't do anything at quarterback? So it really came down to that. I don't love the upside. I don't know if it's going to work, but I need someone to either push Drew Lock to become something or hope Mac Jones pans out. Taking Micah Parsons here or a corner to eventually start when we let Fuller go, I don't think any of that's going to matter until we find a quarterback. This roster is freaking awesome. Get a quarterback.
It is, yeah.
It is what it is. I think this is the only option for Denver, in my opinion.
It's so tough because I totally understand where you're coming from. And at the same time, I absolutely hate it.
No, it doesn't look good.
No, because it's hard to give up on Locke because it's not like he's been a catastrophe. Like we knew it would take time with him.
Yeah.
And so it's just tough. I'm with you though. It's really just a weird situation that, Locke has shown games. He showed more flashes than Sam Darnold has in the NFL so far. There were some games where he legitimately carved teams up and then he's throwing balls directly to spot dropping corners. And it's like, who are you? So I don't know if Mac Jones changes that at all, but Maybe
Well,
he'll
let me
get
ask
some
you this.
velocity boost in the Denver air.
Let me ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
Can the Denver Broncos have a top 7 defense next year?
It depends on Von Miller.
Let's assume Von Miller is good to go.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's say Jerry Jeudy learns how to catch and Cortland Sutton gets healthy and Noah Fant takes the next step and you get, what is it? I always screw him up. Juwan Jennings or whatever the right tackle is that you gave a bunch of money that hasn't played in 2 years.
Juwan James, yeah.
Juwan James.
Yep.
Can they have a top 15 offense with Mac Jones in year 1?
I would say no.
Okay. I would say yes.
I would say that you're probably getting the exact same thing from Mac Jones or Drew Lock, but you're guaranteeing that Drew Lock is never going to become your quarterback. So if you're willing to move on from Drew Lock, because I don't think taking a first-round quarterback is challenging him. I think that's saying you're done. So if you're willing to do that, by all means, right? Like I could understand why.
I'm willing. I think the consistency aspect that you're going to get bringing in Mac Jones as opposed to Drew Lock, where you just don't know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis.
Yep. And don't get me wrong. I think Mac is a first-round talent. He's a guy that you're never going to win because of. And Lock has that potential, but he's also the guy that you're going to lose because of. And I don't know if Mac is ever going to be the guy you're going to lose because of necessarily, right? The offensive line could fail him, or a guy will not be able to catch the ball in traffic, things like that. You could always kind of point, but yeah, I think we've beaten this horse a little bit too much, but they're a really tough spot. Without a trade down, I don't feel comfortable really taking anybody else.
Yeah.
So on to number 10. I think this is the easiest pick that I'll make in this draft. Dallas selects Patrick Surtain. Just
there you go.
I don't think it even needs. I don't even think it needs an explanation. I think he's really freaking good, and he might not be my CB1 based on film alone, but I mean, you want to talk about just consistency, upside. My God, his technique is so good.
So good.
It's unbelievable.
I have a theory that there's just prospect fatigue with him. I don't think, in my mind, there's no debate that he's cut and dry CB1.
I think he's CB1 in the scheme that they're going to play him in Dallas.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
But
that's a good point. Yeah.
I don't think he's CB1 if you just look in a corner.
Okay.
We'll get to him later.
All right. So number 11 is going to be Micah Parsons, and I know you're not huge on this one, but I have maybe this is confirmation bias or whatever. But when the Giants beat the Seahawks, I went in and kind of looked in on like what were they doing? What did the Giants defense do that flustered Russell Wilson and those guys so much? And one thing I noticed was they were taking Tay Crowder and whatever the not Cashman, but the Minnesota
David Mayo.
No, it was the Minnesota rookie edge.
Carter Coughlin.
Carter Coughlin.
Yep.
They were taking them and basically having them play contain and running stunts and blitzing. And what they were basically doing is forcing Russell out of the pocket and then using those interior. Coughlin's an edge hybrid, but using Tay Crowder, who's an interior linebacker, and just putting him on the edge and saying, once Russell fails, like we're gonna have you just chase after him. Yep. And then he was effective on the stunts too. And I'm like, what if that was Micah Parsons on
what if that was a guy who ran 4.38 instead of 4.75?
Yeah. And in the same game, I'm watching Blake Martinez blitz, getting just stunted by any running back that touches him because he's terrible at blitzing. But
he drew a crowd.
Gosh.
But
we're not getting into Blake Martinez, but
no,
I just thought back to the way I watched that specific game, and I'm like, God, if they had Micah Parsons on that defense, I think that Patrick Graham would get really creative and maximize a lot of the questions you have about him, and then let him develop in coverage because he doesn't cover well.
No, and I think you also see that Belichick influence as well. On to number 12. And no, this is not my number one player at this position, but I'm taking Jaycee Horn if I'm the Eagles. You want to take a guy who is just a coverage player, right? You want help at that corner position. They need it so badly. And Horn is the type of player who you can hope to develop his mental processing, which is my biggest concern for him, and his just lack of discipline. But you put him mirror match and press coverage and let him just get his hands on somebody, and he's going to be dominant.
I mean, I don't need to get into it. I think it's a good pick. I do think it's a good pick. I'm just, he's not who I would have taken, but I would have gone Devontae Smith, but we'll skip over that. Pick 13 for me is going to be Christian Darrisaw for the Chargers. Left tackle, great value, pretty basic there, pretty common pick.
Yep. On to 14, and I'm going to go back with the offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings, and it's going to be Alijah Vera Tucker, who I'm taking, and I'm throwing him at left tackle, and we're going to see what happens. I think he's a perfect fit for their zone blocking scheme. And whether you feel that he or Ezra is better equipped to handle tackle right now and the opposite can play guard, you can kind of figure that out in camp. But I'm of the belief that if a guy can play tackle, you let him play tackle until he proves he can't. And he might not have a ton of experience at tackle, but I thought he played pretty well there this year. And I think he's a really good player, very agile, and he's going to be a good fit for them. And they need help up front as much as possible.
Yeah, you can't complain about them going O-line, and we don't have trades in this world, so it's excusable. If the plan is tackle, I would go Sam Cosmi just because he has more of that wide zone ability to get on the move and kind of run that, especially because they run the ball so damn much.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I just don't see the upside with him. Like
I think he gets better push and is better at sustaining the point of attack in the run game. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. He might not be as adept at getting into space as Cosmi, but I think you're going to see him being able to redirect guys a little bit better. His pass sets maybe a little bit more consistent, that sort of deal. That'll be my reasoning for him, and because he can play inside and out.
Fair enough. So next up we have your Patriots. I get to pick for your Patriots, and we're going to take Jaylen Waddle, who will eventually be catching the ball 20 plus yards. Won't be this year because Cam Newton is currently the quarterback. We disagree very strongly about Cam Newton.
I saw Julian Edelman catch vertical passes on one leg against Seattle, 40 yards downfield.
Yes, the one outlier on Cam Newton's season, the Seattle game where he all of a sudden was his old self and then went right back to being the Cam Newton I knew he was coming into the year.
Yep. Hey, Damiere Byrd hurt him too, but we're not gonna talk about that.
I like the direction the Patriots are going for this year with Cam Newton. With I think will be a top, depending how the running back situation plays out, but a top 5 run game with factoring in the numbers advantage that Cam Newton gives you, and then you just get tough chain movers in the short to intermediate game. You bring the 2 tight ends in, and now a elite catch and run short to intermediate option. And yes, he can go vertical, but I don't think with Aguilar there, that's really the role that I'm projecting him to play here until we open up the offense eventually. But right now, that's the way I'm picturing this offense. Get back to elite defense, tough, scrappy offense. And it's actually a formula that I think can work. And then you also have excellent value and a potential Tyreek Hill in the future.
Yeah. It's also interesting because you could see that Aguilar Ruggs dynamic from Las Vegas last year. Either Aguilar plays the Ruggs role or Waddle does as he learns the offense and gets accustomed to it. And one of them's going to be open deep if you run both of them deep because they're both fast enough that they're going to draw a crowd. On to 16. And now we get CB1. Arizona is a team that without Patrick Peterson, who I don't even consider really a plus last year. I thought he was kind of a middle of the pack corner, and Byron Murphy was probably their best corner on that team, but they needed corner help, and Greg Newsome, the second out of Northwestern, is the pick here. And when I say he's the best corner in this class, I see a lot of the Jair Alexander type upside with him, where you can throw him into any scheme and he will be a high level player. Whether you want him in press, I saw him get his hands on guys and he could man up there. if you want just press bail and you don't want him getting his hands on guys, you want mirror and match, he can do it. The best zone eyes in the class from off coverage. He has the athleticism to play from off man. His ball skills are in need of work, but outside of that, I think you see a player who, with some injury concerns, which is why he fell here, right? I'm not going to bet on him over Surtain because of the injury stuff, unless I got a clean bill of health from him. But I mean, this is a guy who you can literally plug and play, and you could see the top 5 upside in almost any system.
I don't disagree with a word you said, but I also think you're crazy for having him CB1. That's all I'm going to say. I love Greg Newsome, so I'm not going to say anything bad about him because I don't want to be slotted in as some Greg Newsome hater. But he's technically CB2 for me because of the health. I will take Surtain every day of the week because he is healthy and he's a technician, but I think and
that's
all
still
this is
more
scheme fit anyway. People never dive into that. It's especially
Right.
corner.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters more in any position than corner.
Absolutely.
Okay, pick 17 is going to be Tevin Jenkins for the Raiders. This is quickly becoming like the best fit for me past the top 10 picks, just with the scheme fit in general, because I like his ability to block any sort of run scheme, and the Raiders like to mix it up there. I trust him in pass protection year one. He can grow there. You gotta protect Derek Carr to let him play in rhythm. And he's great value. I have him as a top 20 player, and he's a Gruden grinder too. So the Raiders actually take a position of value as a true first round talent.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course they do run quite a bit of play action and quick game. So you have a lot of ways to protect him in the pass protection game and let him just maul the hell out of people.
But we all know on Thursday they're just going to take Jackson Carman because he's from Clemson and he's a 3rd round prospect. So
he and Jerome Simpson, man. Okay, on to 18. And this is a little bit of a luxury pick, but I think the Miami Dolphins need to go edge rusher here. And the big reason that I would say that is they were a team that depended almost entirely on scheming up pressure last year. They didn't have anybody that they could depend on to truly win on the edge. Emmanuel Ogbah was the closest thing to that, but he still had so many pressures that were unblocked or just effort plays because of the back end coverage and the blur of defense that they run. So I'm going to go with Jaelan Phillips here. I think you have definite injury concerns, but I'm going to say that in this, he passed all his physicals. They feel comfortable taking him here. I think you see a guy, 5-star recruit, all the athleticism in the world that you could ask for in that position. He can grow into the role, and he has the juice that you want to be a guy who can kind of grow with the team, which is a young, hard-nosed style football team.
Devontae Smith, number 19 here to the Washington football team. Very much a steal in my mind. I noticed you weren't picking him at a couple potential spots for him. So are you lower on Devontae Smith, or not to make it your fault that he fell, but you did pass him with the Eagles and the Cardinals. So
yeah, I think it's just positional value, right? I think when you see the caliber of corner that was on the board versus the caliber of wide receiver that's there, it's just kind of hedging your bets. I think Devonta Smith is going to be a really good player, but I think the other two guys could be transformational players for their defenses. And I'm kind of a defensive-minded guy first. I think you invested pretty heavily in wide receiver, even though Jalen Reagor had a rough season for the Eagles. I think you can still get value on day 2 that is really, really good. I wouldn't feel comfortable there. And they have enough in Arizona, right? With Kirk and Hopkins, and Isabella's going into year 3. You finally get to see what he can do. Maybe put him in the slot because Larry Fitzgerald, if he retires, he won't be there to occupy that role that he could only play there. There's just different ways that you could kind of see that building, and they could always take a flyer in the 2nd or 3rd round because there's so many starter caliber wide receivers, but not that many day 1 corners.
Fair enough. All right, number 20 is you.
Okay, number 20, and I'm sticking on the defensive theme, but this is Chicago. So Chicago going with a pass rusher.
Bears.
Bears. Going with Kwity Paye. edge rusher from Penn State. So the interesting thing with Kwity Paye here is that he's going to learn from Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn. And you want to talk about two guys who are just absolute monsters with their hand usage and technique. I think you see a lot of Robert Quinn in Kwity Paye, especially young Robert Quinn, a guy who wasn't as refined but was just an athletic freak. And I think you're going to see that Kwity Paye is going to be able to learn a lot from those two guys. And I mean, Quinn's 32-ish, somewhere in there. He's not sticking around that long. This gives you another guy to rotate in. And for a team that is going to thrive off their defense, I didn't think they needed to go wide receiver there. I'm still a believer in Anthony Miller. Darnell Mooney was freaking awesome last year for them. Offensive line is good enough. You know, you could make a pick, maybe like an Alex Leatherwood here if you wanted to slot him in a guard, but they seem to like their tackles, and they have at least two good interior offensive linemen in Daniels and Whitehair. So, you know, I kind of went with the luxury pick and continued the building of the defense for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to need edge eventually because Mac's like 30 and Robert Quinn's getting up there too. So, yeah, I think it's a good long-term investment there. But I am going to take Cosme at 21 for the Colts. You got that glaring need. Yep. You've taken a couple of edge rushers already, so no one I'm, reaching for here. And protect Carson Wentz and slot him in and continue having a top 5-0 line.
I mean, that was literally their biggest need by far, right? Yeah. Like, you're not starting Sam Tevi week one. It's not happening. So
don't tell Hicks that on Twitter.
I know he was on he was starting taking antidepressants watching Sam Tevi's film.
And then he convinced himself into it.
Oh God.
He's like, he actually can do a couple things.
Yeah, he can do a couple things, but it's the other 700. On to 22, Tennessee Titans, another injury guy, but you want to talk about just absolute insanity on the upside. I'm taking Caleb Farley here at corner. They need corner help, and Farley is a guy who just perfectly fits their aggressive outside corner style. I don't think much else needs to be said there.
Yeah, no. I mean, as long as you're willing to take the risk of the injury, can't argue with it. So number 23 for the New York Jets, actually going to go defense before giving some help later in the rounds to Zach Wilson. But Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I will credit Brett Coleman on this one, was talking about how such a great scheme fit with the linebackers coach coming over from San Francisco with actually, he might have been coming over from Atlanta, but worked with Deion Jones, worked with, actually was my initial comp for JOK before I raised my grade on him, which was, the Yale guy from
Foye Oluokun.
Foye Oluokun, yes. That was my original comp for him. So just experience developing those types of players. And then obviously the scheme will be a very nice fit, assuming you get CJ Mosley back. There's no reason to say he wouldn't be. So he's going to be your Mike, and then you got your cover guy. So excellent upgrade in the defense.
And they're going 4-3 as well. So he can truly play Will. And I mean, I don't know if I'd play him in the Will. I think you could put him in the slot. You could put him at safety. I think he's athletic enough that he could play in the slot in a zone type scheme.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, Blake Cashman's my dude too. So if he can stay healthy, then yeah, you can. I at a time had JOK as a safety on my board until I eventually moved him back to linebacker. But I totally agree. I totally agree with you.
It really just depends where he goes, right? He's not a 3-4 fit, but he's a 4-3 fit.
Yeah,
so same thing I felt with Isaiah Simmons, right? He's just not a 3-4 inside.
And then he went to a 3-4 team.
Yes, good job, Arizona. On to 24. And I think this team makes a lot of sense. You have to go offensive line here if you're the Steelers. You just have so many needs on that offensive line. Filer's gone, Villanueva's gone, Pouncey's gone. I think Alex Leatherwood here is a guy who you can play him at tackle. You can play him inside. He's athletic. He's a plus in pass protection. Will he get there in terms of the run blocking? Maybe he's not the best fit for their gap scheme, but he's a guy who can play in that pass protecting role, which is basically what Alejandro Villanueva did for them. Villanueva was a solid, consistent left tackle. And I think Leatherwood's that type of player that you can play either inside or outside. And both of them are needs.
obviously I always respect your opinion. I very strongly disagree with like that idea of him as the pass protector as opposed to the run blocker. Just I actually look him at the other way. I have him as a guard better than a tackle with his foot speed really worries me, especially like even at the Senior Bowl, like just couldn't get that depth. And I do think he's a total Pittsburgh Steeler. So like I get it. I think they would turn him into a starting left tackle because the Steelers do that with the Matt Banners of the world. So
I mean, right. He kind of feels like Matt Filer, doesn't he?
Right.
In terms of style.
Does. That's a great comparison. Yeah.
And I mean, Kevin Dotson's a mauler that he's going to be able to play inside, whether you want to put him at center or guard opposite to Castro. But he feels like that type of player, right? He just, as you said, he feels like a Steeler.
Yep, totally does. So I definitely could see them being higher on him than I am. So cool. I'm up with Jacksonville. I'm going to go with Christian Barmore. So they lost out on Tyson Alualu. The return of him fell short as he went back to Pittsburgh. So that interior became a need yet again, especially kind of like that alpha type. You got Taven Bryan, maybe slide him next to Barmore and that works out, but definitely not counting on him to be the dude anymore. You got the run stuffer from Ohio State they took. I think they signed somebody else that I'm probably forgetting, but no one that you're like, wow, we got our Chris Jones, we got our Kenny Clark, no one like that.
I think you're underselling a little. So Davon Hamilton was pretty good. Roy Robertson Harris is who they brought in.
Yes.
Who I like. Doug Costin played really well for them last year in limited role. Now you add Barmore. I think that's a really good rotation. Then you figure out what you would do with Taven Bryan. Like you have pieces. They're playing a 3-4 now. So you have those three interior guys there. A lot of influence from Baltimore. So I totally get it, right? You know, you're going to have a lot of rotation on the inside. If they didn't have Davon Hamilton, I would feel less okay with this pick because they just don't have someone who can plug up the middle otherwise. Because Alualu was kind of going to play that nose tackle role. Maybe they were going to rotate him and Hamilton around.
Yep.
But I think what role would you say Barmore plays? 1 tech, 3 tech?
He would be in year one, I would treat him as just a pass rusher specialist. Okay. And I wouldn't even, if they're coming out in any sort of, 12 personnel or anything, and it's early downs, I'm just like, Barmore, just take your turn on the gas mask, get ready, and go blow shit up on third down. Like that's how I'm using him. And then I mean, he's only 20 years old. I think he'll get a little better against the run, just as Chris Jones has over the years. Not that he's a lead or anything, but to a degree where like you can have him on the field and not worry about that. Is he a space eater? No, but I love his pass rushing ability. And you're also not getting a young pass rusher on the inside like him. You could go sign Geno Atkins or Jarrell Casey or whatever. But for a young team, you're not going to find an option like this. So
on to 26. And again, this is an upside type play. I considered a few different people here. I considered Zaven Collins. I considered Jamin Davis. But I'm going with Jason Owe to the Cleveland Browns. So they signed Jadeveon Clowney.
Sorry.
They signed Jadeveon Clowney. They have Myles Garrett. We want to talk about mentor roles. We want to talk about just burst and speed off the edge. I can't think of a better option to play behind two guys who have done it.
Nothing says mentor like Jadeveon Clowney.
Nothing says mentor like Myles Garrett.
That's what you meant.
Yes. You can have Clowney be kind of your guy that you have in your base downs because the pass rush stuff is not as good. He still gets pressure, but you have a rotation now and you have a little bit of extra juice. I mean, you don't see edge rushers who run 4.38 anymore. Ever. Not anymore. Ever.
I was gonna say, was that a 1980s thing? Was that a Bill Walsh thing?
Right. Yeah, it was a Bill Walsh thing. Yeah, no, ever. You do not see that. The closest is Montez Sweat. And if Sweat could go in the first round without any play strength or anything going for him besides that straight line speed, I think Owe's a guy who can actually learn from this group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with the process. I just don't believe in Jason Owe.
I totally get it. Dude had 0 sacks in his senior year of college.
Sweat, you at least got to see like his growth as a player, and he eventually became productive and defended the run. And Owe, it's just like, I honestly believe he has as good of a chance at tight end as he does at edge because he's that raw to me. Like I just think you have to completely teach him the game of football. So
yeah,
I get the upside. I get it. And I agree with you about the whole, like, you're not going to have Clowney forever here. So I agree with that process. So
I think you're on the clock, sir.
I am up. So I don't make Ravens fans happy too often, but I'm going to do it by taking Rashod Bateman, who is honestly such a freaking perfect fit for now and for the future. So forcing, like, I'll get Lamar for just a second. Like, the outside passing game that the Ravens fans want can theoretically exist. Inside the offense that they currently operate is not a priority because of the way that they run the offense, how focused they're in the middle of the field. And Bateman over the middle is so freaking dangerous with his separation ability, the run off the catch. He does run block. So he just, like, for the current offense is amazing, but he can also develop as that Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams sort of archetype of receiver if the passing game evolves there. So it's just a all around, and they need a receiver that run blocks like they just do, and Rashod Bateman does. So it's just a perfect fit. Yeah,
no, I'm totally with you. I'll pound the table for a wide receiver for that team.
Yeah,
all day, every day. They need it so badly. And now here we get to the portion of the program that I've been looking forward to most. I don't know about you.
I'm going to hide.
Okay. With the 28th pick.
This doesn't fit on my head.
The New Orleans Saints select Asante Samuel Jr.
Oh.
Corner, Florida State.
No.
You want to talk about a perfect fit to play opposite Marshawn Lattimore? Right now, their CB2 is Grant Haley, unless you consider PJ Williams an outside corner, which I think at this stage in his career, I don't think even he does. Kind of that hybrid safety slot player. And Asante is the other type of player who can also move inside and play nickel if you need him to. So you have a lot of position flexibility with him, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and company in that CB room. And I don't know why you're upset. It's not like there's a team coming up that could use a corner.
Or my number 2 corner.
Yeah, I don't think there's a team like that.
That runs a off zone cover 4 system.
Yeah, definitely not
coverage.
One of those.
Likes to run man coverage. Yeah, I can't think of a team that's on the clock that. All right, well, I guess we're just gonna take Kadarius Toney then, because you took all of the damn corners. I would have taken Greg Newsome, Caleb Farley, but you took them all. So
I mean, take Eric Stokes and prosper.
No, I think we're good. I think we're good. Okay, go I actually do like the depth. To be fair, I do like the depth in this corner class to get in the second round.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to reach on one of those guys here.
Yep.
We're going to take the receiver now, target the corner later, just the way that my board shapes up. You didn't like this pick, but Kadarius Toney, to me, is Brandon Ayuk. Like that.
Yeah.
I view him almost identical as a player. The run after the catch ability, the speed, good hands, catching traffic, probably not as good as Ayuk was coming out, but it's whatever. That's not really what you're drafting him to do anyway. If the route running develops, that's great. If it doesn't, I don't really care because the system's going to set this guy up so well. Yeah, and he just happens to have the MVP throwing him the football. So
on to 30. Buffalo Bills are on the clock, and they've been looking for a compatriot to pair with Jerry Hughes for 17 years, what it feels like. So I'm going Azeez Ojulari here, edge rusher out of Georgia. Big fan of his game, edge setter, physical, technician, really good player. I think for some people, he might be edge 1. And I think he's just a really safe, powerful player. He's a little bit undersized, right? But he handles things better than you would expect for someone of his size.
I was pleasantly surprised by his play strength.
So, and he's a very smart player. So I'm very much a fan of him. And I think he could be a good player. Yes, there's a little bit of stiffness to his game, but he's kind of in that Shaquille Barrett type role of technician, winning with his hands, things like that, rather than just pure blur off the edge.
Yeah. So pick 31, I did struggle with this a little bit, and this was not long after the trade broke, so I haven't had time to fully digest this, but I actually went with Landon Dickerson. picture the push that you're now going to be able to get with Zeitler and Dickerson in the middle compared to what you did last year. A big difference in this offense to me was the lack of that interior threat in the read option that I think at the core of that offense actually was it was just a missing gear in the whole thing, because all of a sudden teams were able to be like, well, we'll just put 2 guys as contain on the outside, which I saw all the time.
Yes.
And they weren't so worried about Yonda, and Mark Ingram disappeared from the face of the planet. It was actually, for a running back, as much as it matters, I think this might be the first time we've mentioned a running back in this hour recording. As much as it matters, he was really good at getting those 6-7 yards, hitting that hole super hard.
Yes.
So I actually think getting that threat of the middle of the read option could reopen up the offense. So Landon Dickerson, as opposed to Creed Humphrey, is going to be the guy that can kind of help do that.
With 32, you want to talk about a luxury pick? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defending Super Bowl champs, select Elijah Moore, wide receiver. I mean, that's just unfair, putting him in that offense. He's the guy who, if I was Green Bay, I would have considered pretty heavily. You made a very good point that there are plenty of slot options. But, I mean, he has the speed. He has the change of direction. He's violent after the catch. He turns up field like a blur. He can be a safety net underneath. He's so dynamic. I mean, he's the type of player that opens things up underneath. And if you don't bring Antonio Brown back, he literally fulfills that role. So, and if you bring Antonio Brown back, now you have 2 of him.
I hadn't said anything because I think I'm already having nightmares of this whole situation. But
don't worry, Kevin King will shut him down.
Oh yeah,
especially with Kadarius Toney being the option there instead of Tyson Campbell or Eric Stokes.
God. I hate everything.
The nightmare will continue.
Thanks everyone for watching. This was fun, and we'll see everyone on draft night for the live stream.
Yep.
Peace out.
Thank you so much for having me.
Do you have anything you want to plug there, big guy?
No, I'm good.
We all know who you are.
Yeah.
Follow him on YouTube. Link
and
down
Twitter.
below.
Twitter. I spend more time on there. A lot of time on there. All right. See ya.
Peace out.